The airline agent yells at Keanu Reeves, the world-famous actor, accusing him of cutting the line. But Keanu stays calm, and nobody recognizes him. The terminal was packed with tired travelers lugging bags and scanning departure boards. The dull overhead lights flickered occasionally, adding a grim atmosphere to the already tense morning rush. At the far end of the priority boarding line, a man in a gray hoodie and a battered baseball cap shuffled forward quietly, clutching a worn boarding pass. Janice, the airline ticket agent behind the counter, was having a terrible day. The line had been long and demanding, passengers sniping and complaining non-stop. Her patience was threadbare, and her sharp eyes scanned the crowd. Landing on the man approaching her desk, without lifting her gaze, she snapped, "Next. Step right up." The man, Keanu Reeves, though no one realized, met her eyes briefly, and smiled politely. "Good morning," he said calmly, placing his boarding pass and passport on the counter. Janice glanced down at his documents, and then back at him, a spark of irritation flaring in her eyes. "You're in the wrong line. Sir, this is the priority boarding section. You don't qualify." Keanu's smile remained steady, but his brow furrowed just slightly. "I thought this was the regular economy line." Janice snorted, loud enough for others nearby to hear. "No, it's not. You don't get to just assume where you belong." Murmurs rippled through the queue behind them. Some passengers whispered among themselves, some pulled out phones, while others just watched in silent curiosity. Keanu shifted his weight, but stayed calm. "I apologize, please tell me where I should go." Janice leaned forward, voice dripping with condescension. "Figure it out. Or do you want me to call security?" The room seemed to tighten, tension thickening with every word. Behind the counter, a young intern named Owen peeked nervously over his computer screen. His eyes widened. "Isn't that Keanu Reeves?" he whispered to no one in particular. Janice scoffed without looking. "No way. He looks like some random guy trying to sneak ahead." The crowd was divided, some skeptical, others curious, but nobody said anything. Janice's voice climbed in volume, filled with frustration. "You're not famous here. You're just some guy in a hoodie wasting everyone's time." Keanu's lips pressed into a soft smile. "I'm not trying to waste time. I want to board my flight quietly." Janice's nostrils flared. "Well, you can wait in the back with the rest of the line." Just then, an elderly man leaning on a cane stepped forward. His face was lined with years of hardship, but his eyes burned with quiet defiance. "That's not fair," he said. "The man's done nothing wrong." Janice whipped around, voice sharp as a whip. "And you, sit down before you make a scene." The old man lowered his gaze and shuffled back, his dignity bruised. Keanu took a breath and said softly, "Sometimes the hardest thing is to be patient." His words hung in the air like a whispered prayer. Owen watched, captivated by the calm dignity radiating from the man. He had heard stories of Keanu's kindness and humility, but seeing it firsthand was different. The security guard arrived, expression unreadable. He glanced at Keanu, then back at Janice. "Should I escort him out?" Janice asked, voice tense. The guard hesitated, eyes flickering to Keanu's face, as if recognizing something buried beneath the quiet exterior. Keanu nodded slowly, not resisting. The guard reached out to guide him. Keanu cast a final glance around the crowd, calm/steady, unshaken, no applause, no recognition. Just silence. Owen whispered under his breath, "There's more to this man than anyone knows." Passengers pulled out phones, some began recording discreetly, curious and confused. Behind the scenes, whispers spread. Who was this quiet man, forced into humiliation? Why did no one stand up for him? Janice's glare softened for a moment, a flicker of doubt crossing her face, but then she squared her shoulders, as if to convince herself this was just business as usual. Keanu walked away quietly, blending once more into the sea of strangers, yet something lingered, an invisible force of quiet strength and grace that no angry shout could drown. Who is this man really, and what happens next? The security guard's footsteps echoed quietly down the long corridor as he escorted Keanu Reeves away from the crowded check-in area. The man in the grey hoodie walked calmly beside him, his expression unreadable, almost serene, but behind them, the tension in the terminal only grew thicker. Passengers whispered among themselves. Some pulled out their phones, eager to catch every moment of what was unfolding. A few shook their heads in disbelief, and others simply watched, unsure of what to think. Janice, the airline agent who had shouted at Keanu moments before, returned to her post with a sharp glare. She glanced nervously at the growing crowd, now fixated on her and the man she had humiliated. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to regain control, but inside, doubt began to creep in. Meanwhile, Owen, the young intern who had tentatively spoken up earlier, watched from behind the counter. His heart raced. He had never been involved in anything like this before, seeing someone treated so unfairly. But what unsettled him the most was the strange feeling that the man in the hoodie was not who he appeared to be. Back in the waiting area, Keanu sat quietly on a cold metal bench. His calm presence seemed out of place amid the chatter and frustration of other passengers. But the quiet dignity he carried was unmistakable. It was as if, despite everything, he was untouched by the chaos around him. Janice's voice cut through the room again, sharper and more aggressive. "Sir, you still can't board without moving to the back of the line." Keanu looked up slowly, meeting her eyes without anger. "I understand, but I'm not here to argue. I'm just trying to get to my flight." The crowd shifted uneasily. Some began to murmur about fairness and respect. A few passengers whispered encouragement to Keanu, but no one stepped forward. Suddenly, a young mother stood up, holding her small child's hand tightly. "This isn't right," she said firmly. "You're treating him like a criminal." Janice's face darkened. "Ma'am, this is company policy. If you don't like it, you can leave." The mother's eyes flashed with frustration, but she sat back down, holding her child closer. Keanu's voice was soft but clear. "Sometimes the rules don't tell the whole story." Owen watched closely, noticing something subtle, a small scar on Keanu's hand, almost hidden beneath his sleeve, as if it held a secret. There was a quiet power behind his gentle words that made the room feel heavier. Janice's temper boiled. Enough. If you can't follow instructions, I'll have security remove you." At that moment, a teenager stepped forward from the crowd. His name was Lucas, a quiet boy who had been waiting in line for hours. "Hey, I think you should stop. This guy hasn't done anything wrong." Janice spun around, eyes blazing. "And what would you know, kid? Stay out of this." Lucas took a deep breath, but didn't back down. "It's not about rules, it's about respect." Janice's glare hardened. "Respect is earned, not given to anyone who walks in looking like a nobody." The crowd grew louder, some supporting Lucas, others siding with Janice. The airport security guard appeared again, looking uncomfortable. Keanu's expression didn't change. He stood slowly, his posture calm but firm. "I'm grateful for your kindness," he said to Lucas, nodding. "But it's not worth causing trouble." Lucas's eyes widened in surprise. You're really not angry?" Keanu shook his head. "No. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay kind." Janice's voice cut in sharply. "Strong or not, you will follow the rules or leave." Suddenly, a small commotion erupted at the back of the line. An older woman, a passenger with a walking cane, stumbled as the crowd shifted impatiently. Keanu instinctively reached out, steadying her with a gentle hand. "Thank you," she whispered, eyes filled with gratitude. Janice noticed and sneered. "Why don't you leave that kindness at home? It's useless here." The older woman looked down, hurt, but Keanu smiled gently. "Kindness is never useless." Owen's heart pounded. He felt something deeper in Keanu's actions, a quiet strength and humanity that challenged everything happening around them. More passengers started to record the scene with their phones. Videos began circulating online, captions questioning Janice's harsh treatment of the man in the hoodie. Janice's face flushed red. She slammed her hands on the counter. "Stop filming. This is private company business." But the crowd ignored her. Keanu remained composed. He glanced around, his eyes locking with Owen's briefly, as if silently thanking him for noticing the truth behind the chaos. A young woman sitting nearby whispered to her friend, "There's something about him. He doesn't act like he's upset, but you can tell he's hurting." The friend nodded. "Yeah, it's like he's carrying the weight of the world, but still choosing to be gentle." Janice took a deep breath, trying to mask her growing embarrassment and anger. She picked up the phone and dialed. "Security. We have a situation. With a passenger refusing to comply. Please send backup immediately." Keanu heard this but didn't flinch. He closed his eyes for a moment, then looked back at the crowd. "Sometimes," he said softly, "the hardest battles are the ones you fight with yourself." The crowd fell silent again. Owen felt a lump form in his throat. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the terminal. More security guards appeared, their faces unreadable, but their presence commanding attention. Janice turned to Keanu. "You need to come with us." Keanu nodded without resistance. "I will." As he stood, a hush fell over the crowd. People watched in stunned silence as the quiet man was escorted away once again. Owen wanted to reach out, to say something, but the moment passed too quickly. Keanu's calm in the face of growing hostility left a lasting impression. No one could deny there was something extraordinary about this man who wore no crown but carried himself like a king. And as he disappeared from view, one question lingered in the air louder than any shouted insult. Who is this man really? And why does his quiet strength make everyone around him question themselves? The soft hum of the airport faded into the background as Keanu sat alone in a quiet corner of the lounge. His eyes stared out the window at the endless runway, watching planes take off and land with mechanical precision. But behind that calm gaze was a story few knew, a story shaped by pain, promise, and quiet strength. Years ago, Keanu had grown up far from the bright lights of Hollywood. His childhood was simple but difficult. Raised by his mother after his parents separated, he knew what it meant to face hardship early on. The neighborhood wasn't kind, and money was always tight. But what he lacked in wealth, he made up for in character. His grandmother was his greatest teacher. A wise woman with gentle eyes, she had told him once, "Kindness is the strongest armor a person can wear. It protects you when nothing else will." Keanu clung to those words during his toughest times. When he lost his father to illness at a young age, when friends turned away, when the world seemed cold and unforgiving, he remembered her advice. It was a promise he made, to live with humility, no matter what life threw his way. As a teenager, Keanu had been bullied for being quiet and different. Instead of fighting back with anger, he chose to listen and understand. His kindness wasn't weakness. It was a silent rebellion against cruelty. That same quiet rebellion had carried him through the years, eventually leading him to the path of acting. He remembered the day he got his first role, not because he was flashy or arrogant, but because he showed respect and honesty. The struggles didn't end with fame. If anything, they deepened. The pressure, the rumors, the public's expectations were heavy. But through it all, Keanu stayed grounded now. Sitting in the airport, the memories were sharper than ever. The harsh words from the ticket agent, the judgmental stares, the silence from the crowd, all of it reminded him of those lonely days. But he knew that responding with anger wouldn't change anything. Patience was his weapon. His fingers traced a small, worn leather bracelet on his wrist, a gift from his grandmother. It was a symbol of the promise he kept, to be kind, to be strong, and to never forget where he came from. A flashback came unbidden. A chilly evening in his childhood home. His grandmother sat beside him on a threadbare couch, her voice soft but firm. "Keanu," she said, "the world will not always see your worth, but you must see it for yourself. Let your actions speak louder than their words." That night, he had made a silent vow, no matter how many times he was misunderstood, mistreated, or ignored, he would respond with grace. Back in the present, Keanu's calm was interrupted by Owen, the young intern, who approached quietly. "Are you okay?" Owen asked, genuine concern in his eyes. Keanu looked up, offering a small smile. "More than okay. I'm reminded that kindness often goes unseen, but that doesn't make it any less real." Owen nodded, inspired by the quiet strength before him. "I wish more people could see that." Keanu's gaze softened. "They will in time." The moment was interrupted by the return of the security guard, who motioned for Keanu to follow him. The crowd outside had grown restless, and the tension was rising again. As he stood, Keanu felt a quiet determination settle within him. This was more than just a moment of humiliation. It was a chance to show something deeper, that dignity and compassion could rise even in the darkest moments. Walking through the terminal, Keanu noticed the curious eyes of bystanders, some suspicious, some admiring, most confused. One elderly woman whispered to her companion, "That man carries himself differently. There's something honest about him." Keanu's steps were steady, his face composed, but inside, memories flickered of struggles faced, of kindness given without expectation, and of a promise to himself to never lose hope. The security guard glanced sideways, breaking the silence. "You're handling this well." Keanu nodded. "I've had practice." They reached a small office near the gates. Keanu was asked to wait while the situation was reviewed. Alone again, he closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. The past and present seemed to blend. The pain of rejection, the lessons of humility, and the quiet strength he carried all mingled within him. He thought again of his grandmother's words, "Kindness is the strongest armor." He understood now more than ever that this moment was a test, not just of his patience, but of his character. Minutes later, Owen appeared at the door, holding out a small paper cup of water. "I thought you might need this," he said softly. Keanu accepted it gratefully, their eyes meeting in mutual respect. "Thank you, Keanu," said. "Your kindness means more than you know." Owen smiled. "I hope you know, you're not alone." Keanu's smile deepened, touched by the genuine warmth. As the chapter closed, Keanu prepared to face what was next. The storm of judgment and misunderstanding was far from over, but so was his quiet, unbreakable resolve. Sometimes, the hardest battles are fought in silence, and the strongest victories are those of the heart. The hum of the airport continued, but a quiet tension had settled in one corner near the boarding gates. Keanu Reeves, still dressed simply in his gray hoodie and worn jeans, sat quietly on a bench as more passengers whispered and stared. His calm demeanor seemed to draw a silent respect, even from some strangers. Among the crowd was a man named Miguel, a security officer assigned to the airport, known for his kindness and quiet strength. Miguel was a tall man with a gentle face, the kind who noticed details others overlooked. As he observed the scene unfolding around Keanu, something stirred within him. Miguel had watched Janice, the ticket agent, aggressively pushing Keanu around, refusing to listen or show any empathy. To Miguel, it felt wrong. The man before him showed no arrogance or entitlement. Instead, there was a softness in his eyes, a humility rarely seen in a place filled with impatience and rudeness. Miguel took a deep breath and approached Janice cautiously. "Janice, maybe we should give him a break," he said quietly, trying not to raise his voice. "He's not causing any trouble." Janice shot him a sharp glance. "Miguel, this is policy. We can't just let people jump the line. If we do, the whole system breaks down." Miguel nodded, understanding her point, but he shook his head gently. "Sometimes, the system needs a little mercy. The man hasn't been disrespectful. He's been patient." Janice crossed her arms, visibly irritated. "We don't have time for this. You're on security duty. Keep order. Don't argue with me." Miguel paused, then looked back at Keanu, who was quietly watching the exchange with those calm eyes. Miguel's heart clenched. He knew he had to do something. Walking over to Keanu, Miguel spoke softly. "Sir, I'm sorry for how things have been. If you need anything, just let me know." Keanu gave a small, genuine smile. Thank you, Miguel. That means a lot. Miguel returned to his post, but his actions had not gone unnoticed. Janice's irritation grew, and she muttered under her breath, "This is getting out of hand." As the minutes passed, Miguel noticed other passengers beginning to take sides. Some offered quiet nods of approval toward Keanu. Others shifted uncomfortably, sensing the unfairness but unwilling to intervene. Suddenly, a young woman with a stroller approached Miguel. She whispered urgently, "Please, can you do something? This isn't right." Miguel looked around carefully, then nodded. "I'll try." But Janice was watching closely. Minutes later, Miguel quietly offered Keanu a small bottle of water and a reassuring nod. "Hang in there," he said. Keanu accepted it with a grateful smile, holding the bottle as a small sign of hope. But the kindness didn't come without consequences. Later that afternoon, Miguel was called into the airport supervisor's office. Janice had complained about his unprofessional behavior, accusing him of undermining authority and encouraging passengers to question the rules. Miguel listened quietly as the supervisor expressed concern. "Security is about following protocol," the supervisor said sternly. "If officers start picking sides, it causes chaos." Miguel nodded respectfully, but said, "I'm only trying to treat people with dignity." The supervisor sighed. "We understand your intentions, but you must remember your role." Miguel left the office feeling a heavy weight settle on his shoulders. His kindness had made him a target. Back near the gates, Keanu heard about Miguel's situation from Owen, the intern. Owen looked worried. "Miguel's a good man. It's not fair what's happening to him." Keanu's eyes softened. Sometimes, standing up for what's right comes with a price. Later, Miguel returned to his post, but with a quieter demeanor. His actions had cost him respect from some colleagues, but in his heart, he knew he had done the right thing. One afternoon, as Keanu prepared to board his flight, he approached Miguel. "Thank you for your kindness," Keanu said quietly, handing Miguel a small folded card. Miguel unfolded it to find a simple message: "Kindness is a light in the darkness. Never let it go out." Miguel looked up, eyes moist with gratitude. "You don't have to remember my name," Keanu said softly. "Just remember to be kind." Miguel nodded, touched deeply, as Keanu disappeared through the boarding gate. Miguel stood silently, holding the card close, though Janice's anger still simmered nearby. A quiet change had begun. A small act of kindness had left an undeniable mark. Passengers whispered. Stories began to spread. And a subtle shift in the airport's atmosphere could be felt. Miguel's courage to show compassion, despite the consequences, had sparked something greater, and Keanu's quiet promise of kindness echoed in the hearts of those who had witnessed it. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is be kind, even when the world expects us to be harsh. The moment that everyone had been holding their breath for finally arrived. The airport terminal, still buzzing with whispers and curiosity, suddenly shifted into a whirlwind of shock and disbelief. A soft murmur began to grow as a woman near the gate leaned toward her friend, her voice trembling with surprise. "Wait, isn't that Keanu Reeves?" At first it was just a whisper, barely audible over the ambient noise. But the word spread quickly, traveling like wildfire through the crowd. Phones emerged from pockets, cameras zoomed in, and expressions turned from confusion to awe. Janice, the ticket agent who had been so quick to judge and scold the man in the hoodie, froze mid. Her eyes darted around nervously as she caught sight of the growing crowd, many now staring directly at Keanu. Her voice faltered. "No, it can't be." Owen, the intern, nudged a nearby passenger who was recording video and whispered, "See, I told you, he's the real Keanu Reeves." Suddenly, the entire terminal was filled with a chorus of reactions, some gasps, some excited chatter, some murmurs of apology and regret. The same people who had ignored or condemned the quiet man were now staring with admiration and shock. Janice's face flushed with embarrassment. The power she had wielded moments ago had crumbled in an instant. She took a shaky breath and tried to explain, I just didn't recognize him. He looked so different, so ordinary. Keanu's calm presence did not waver. He stepped forward, slightly, eyes meeting Janice's with quiet compassion. Sometimes, the way a person looks isn't what matters. It's what they carry inside. His words hung heavy in the air, carrying a gentle but firm reminder of humility and grace. The crowd grew more restless, emotions mixing between admiration, shame, and awe. Some people whispered apologies. Others just stared silently, touched by the sincerity that radiated from Keanu. A young man approached, nervously clutching his phone. I'm sorry I doubted you, he said quietly. Keanu smiled softly, shaking his head. There is no need for apologies. I understand more than you know. Janice looked down, ashamed but unable to speak. The lines of anger on her face softened into a troubled frown. In a voice clear and steady, Keanu addressed the crowd. I could respond with anger or resentment for how I was treated today, but I choose compassion instead. The room fell silent. Every pair of eyes locked on him. Every ear eager to catch his words. It's easy to judge someone by their appearance, their status, or the moment they're in. But true strength is shown in kindness and understanding. Keanu paused, looking around at the faces filled with surprise and reflection. This is not about me. It's about how we treat one another, whether we remember that every person deserves respect and dignity. A wave of emotion swept over the crowd. Some reached for tissues, others nodded slowly, their eyes moist. Janice swallowed hard, voice barely audible. Thank you for reminding me. Keanu's eyes softened. We all have the power to choose kindness. It's never too late to change. A few moments later, a security guard who had stood quietly watching stepped forward. I'm sorry for the way things were handled. It wasn't right. Keanu inclined his head. Thank you. The mood in the terminal shifted from tension to something new, a collective moment of understanding and healing. Outside the waiting area, the news had begun to spread. Phones and social media buzzed with clips of the incident, highlighting the injustice and Keanu's remarkable grace. For those watching from afar, the story was more than just a celebrity being treated unfairly. It was a lesson in empathy and compassion. Back in the terminal, Keanu turned to Owen and Miguel, his voice sincere. Thank you both for standing with kindness. Miguel smiled warmly. You taught us all something today. Owen nodded, eyes shining. Yeah, you showed us how to be better. Keanu looked out toward the crowd once more. The world can be harsh, but we don't have to be. Janice approached slowly, still uncertain. Is there anything I can do to make this right? Keanu considered her for a moment before replying. Start by treating everyone with respect. That's the best place to begin. She nodded solemnly. As the announcement called for boarding, Keanu prepared to leave, but before walking away, he turned back once more. Remember, he said softly, kindness is not weakness. It's the strongest thing we can offer. With that, he disappeared through the gate, leaving behind a terminal transformed by a simple but profound lesson. Passengers whispered among themselves, changed by the encounter. Some wiped tears away, others exchanged looks of new understanding. Owen smiled quietly, feeling that he had witnessed something rare and important. Miguel adjusted his uniform, knowing his small acts of kindness had been part of a greater ripple. Janice looked around, humbled and reflective. For the first time that day, she truly understood what it meant to see beyond the surface. And Keanu Reeves, the man who had been underestimated and mistreated, had in that moment shown the world what it means to be truly strong. The moment. Keanu Reeves quietly walked through the boarding gate. The scene at the airport shifted into something no one expected. His calm, composed exit did not end the story. It only marked the beginning of a much larger ripple. Within minutes, videos recorded by passengers like Owen and others began circulating on social media. Clips of the harsh treatment Keanu had faced, the gentle kindness he showed despite it all, and his powerful words reached thousands, then millions across the country. At first, the reaction was shock. How could someone so famous be treated so unfairly? How could an airport employee yell at a man who had done nothing wrong, simply because he looked different? News outlets picked up the story, headlines spreading quickly. Keanu Reeves faces humiliation at airport, then responds with grace. The narrative was simple but profound, capturing hearts everywhere. Back at the airport, the atmosphere had changed. Passengers who had been silent before now openly spoke up, sharing their views with friends and strangers alike. Conversations bubbled with surprise and empathy. Back Miguel, the security officer who had quietly supported Keanu, found himself receiving unexpected attention. Fellow employees whispered about his courage. Some praised him. Others grumbled that he had caused trouble. Despite mixed feelings, Miguel remained humble. He believed in kindness, no matter the cost, but the social media storm meant he could no longer stay invisible. Meanwhile, Janice faced her own storm. Complaints flooded her manager's desk, calling out her rude behavior and lack of empathy. The company launched an internal investigation. Janice was placed on temporary leave. She sat alone in the break room, replaying the events in her mind. For the first time, she truly felt the weight of her actions. She thought about Keanu's calm words, his refusal to respond with anger. The image of his gentle eyes stayed with her. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she whispered to herself, regret softening her hardened expression. Owen, watching the online reactions, felt proud and hopeful. The kindness he had witnessed had sparked something bigger than himself. A wave of empathy reaching far beyond the airport walls. At home that evening, Keanu sat quietly, reading messages of support pouring in from around the world. Fans, strangers, and even strangers inspired by the story shared their own experiences of kindness and injustice. But Keanu was not interested in praise. Instead, he thought about Miguel, about the young intern Owen, about Janice, and the passengers who had watched silently. He sent a message to Miguel, simple but heartfelt. "Your kindness matters. Keep shining your light." Miguel replied quickly, "Thank you. I will." As the story spread, people began to recognize Miguel as more than just a security guard. He was a symbol of courage and compassion. Meanwhile, Janice struggled to come to terms with her mistakes. She reached out to the airport management, requesting a meeting. She wanted to apologize to make amends. At the meeting, Janice spoke honestly. "I let my frustration get the better of me. I judged without understanding. I hope I can learn from this and treat everyone with respect." The manager nodded thoughtfully. "Acknowledging your mistakes is the first step. We'll work together." To improve training and awareness, Janice left the meeting determined to change, not just for her job, but for herself. Social media continued to buzz. A hashtag began trending. #kindness is strength. People shared stories of small acts of compassion, inspired by Keanu's example, and posted a video thanking everyone for their support. His voice steady but emotional. "We saw something real today, a reminder that kindness can change lives." The viral wave reached local news shows, talk shows, and even charity organizations. They praised the simple yet powerful message: everyone deserves dignity. Back at the airport, the mood shifted noticeably. Staff began to smile more, to listen more. Miguel noticed subtle changes in behavior. Co-workers offering help, passengers feeling safer and more respected. One day, Miguel found a small note taped to his locker. It read, "Thank you for showing me the meaning of kindness." No signature, just a quiet message that meant everything. As the weeks passed, the story's impact rippled outward. Keanu's humility remained constant. He declined interviews and public appearances about the incident, preferring to let the message speak for itself. Instead, he focused on supporting those who had stood with him, Miguel and Owen quietly helping in ways that changed their lives. For Miguel, Keanu's gesture meant the world. It gave him strength to face criticism and stay true to his values. For Owen, it was a lesson in courage to speak up and stand for what is right, even when it's difficult. Janice, meanwhile, embarked on a personal journey of growth. She volunteered in community programs, learning to listen and empathize. Her co-workers noticed the change, and slowly respect was rebuilt. The airport management launched new training sessions focusing on respect and kindness. A direct result of the incident, passengers noticed the difference. The place that had felt cold and harsh now held warmth and humanity, and through it all, Keanu's message echoed, "Kindness is not a weakness, it is the strongest power we have." The airport buzz had settled into a quieter, more hopeful hum as the days passed after the incident. But for Miguel, the security guard whose quiet courage had sparked a movement, life was about to change in a way he never expected. One morning, Miguel arrived early for his shift, still feeling the weight of the past weeks, the criticism from some colleagues, the support from others, and the overwhelming flood of attention from strangers and strangers alike. Yet beneath it all, he carried a quiet pride, knowing he had done what was right. As he stepped through the terminal doors, he noticed a familiar figure waiting for him near the security office. Keanu Reeves himself, dressed simply as always, with a warm smile that reached his eyes. "Miguel," Keanu greeted, his voice calm and steady. "May I have a moment?" Miguel's heart skipped. He nodded, words caught in his throat. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Handing it to Miguel, "I want to thank you properly." Miguel opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a letter and a card. The letter read, "Dear Miguel, your kindness and courage inspired more people than you know. You stood up, not for me, but for what is right, even when it was hard. I want to help you continue to make a difference. Enclosed is an opportunity to further your education and training. A scholarship to a security management program, fully funded. This is not about me, it's about honoring your spirit. Use it well. Thank you for being a light." Keanu smiled gently. "I believe in you." Miguel's eyes welled up with tears. "I don't know what to say, thank you, truly." Keanu shook his hand warmly. "Just keep being kind, that's all I ask." As Keanu walked away toward his gate, Miguel stood rooted in place, the weight of the gift settling into his soul. This was more than money or opportunity. It was a validation of his values. A reminder that courage and kindness could open doors. Back in the terminal, word spread quickly. Passengers and staff alike talked about Keanu's unexpected generosity. The security office received calls of congratulations, and Miguel's name became known, not just as a guard, but as a symbol of hope. Meanwhile, Owen, the young intern, watched all this unfold with wide eyes and a full heart. The lessons he had learned from witnessing Keanu's grace, Miguel's kindness, and even Janice's growth, felt like a foundation for his own future. One afternoon, Owen approached Miguel. "You deserve this, Miguel. You showed all of us how to be better." Miguel smiled humbly. "We all have the power to make a difference. Sometimes, it just takes one small act." But the story was not finished. Janice, who had been quietly rebuilding herself, reached out once again. She invited Miguel and Owen to meet with her at a community center where she volunteered. She wanted to make amends in person. The meeting was heartfelt and honest. Janice apologized sincerely for her actions and shared her journey toward understanding. "I realize now how wrong I was," she said, voice trembling. "I hope to be someone who helps others, not judges them." Miguel nodded. "We all stumble. What matters is what we do next." Owen added, "This is a new beginning." Janice smiled, eyes shining. "Thank you both for your forgiveness." In the weeks that followed, the trio became a small force of positive change at the airport and beyond. They spoke at staff meetings, sharing their story of injustice, kindness, and growth. Their message resonated deeply. Keanu, watching from afar, quietly supported their efforts, knowing that true change came from within the hearts of those willing to stand up and be better. Then came another surprise. A local community organization that had followed the story reached out to Miguel with a job offer security supervisor, with a focus on improving customer relations and staff training. The scholarship Keanu had gifted would allow Miguel to excel in this new role. Miguel accepted with gratitude. determined to use the chance to make the airport a place where kindness wasn't an exception, but the rule. As Miguel prepared for his first day as supervisor, he found a note on his desk. It read simply, "Keep shining your light." He smiled, feeling the weight of the journey from silent observer to a leader inspiring change. Owen was right beside him. Now an official employee, ready to support the new culture of empathy. Janice had returned to work as well, her transformation evident in every interaction. And somewhere in the distance, Keanu Reeves' quiet message continued to ripple outward. "Nobody needs to know my name. Just make kindness your legacy." That phrase became their mantra. One afternoon, as the airport buzzed with life, Miguel saw a child holding her mother's hand, watching the busy terminal with curious eyes. He knelt down and smiled. "Do you know what kindness is?" The child looked up, bright and innocent. "It's when you help someone without expecting anything back." Miguel nodded. Exactly. In that moment, he realized that the greatest gift Keanu had given wasn't the scholarship or the letter. It was a renewed belief in the power of kindness to change lives forever. And for Miguel, Owen, Janice, and countless others, that belief was now a beacon of hope. Kindness is not just an act, it's a movement. The airport had changed. Not in the way that strangers would immediately notice. The walls were still the same. The lights still flickered as usual, and the hustle of travelers rushing to gates continued without pause. But something deeper had shifted, something that no one could quite put into words. Miguel stood near the entrance, watching as families hugged, friends smiled, and strangers helped one another without hesitation. The coldness that once filled this place had been replaced by a quiet warmth, a gentle spirit of respect that seemed to flow from person to person. He remembered the first time he met Keanu Reeves at this very spot, the man with humble clothes and eyes full of kindness, who had taught everyone a lesson far greater than any policy or rule. Miguel's gaze drifted to a small piece of paper, tucked into his shirt pocket, the same card Keanu had given him weeks ago. The words on it echoed. In his mind, kindness is a light in the darkness. Never let it go out. Just then, Owen approached, holding a steaming cup of coffee, his face bright with hope. "Morning, Miguel," Owen said with a smile. "You look like you're thinking about something important." Miguel nodded, just reflecting. It's amazing how one person's kindness can change so much. Owen glanced around. "Yeah, it's like the whole airport is different now. Even Janice seems different." Miguel chuckled softly. "She's come a long way. The apology she made was sincere, and she's working hard to make things right." Owen sipped his coffee thoughtfully. "Do you think Keanu knows what he started?" Miguel smiled, eyes full of admiration. He always did. But he never wanted the spotlight. He wanted to show us all the power of simple kindness. As they walked through the terminal together, they noticed a small crowd gathering near a bench. An elderly woman sat quietly, holding a young child on her lap. The child looked up at the sky, her eyes wide with wonder. Miguel approached gently. "Hello there, what are you thinking about?" The child looked at him with innocent curiosity. "I was wondering if kindness is like magic." Miguel smiled. "Kindness is better than magic. It's real, and it can change the world." The elderly woman smiled warmly. "We could all use a little more kindness in our lives." Miguel nodded. In agreement, that's what this place has learned. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the airport, Miguel felt a quiet peace settle in his heart. He thought back to the moment when Keanu had quietly slipped away through the gate, disappearing like a whisper in the wind. No grand farewell, no fanfare, just a simple exit, leaving behind a powerful message. Suddenly, a voice called out softly nearby. That wasn't just a customer, a young woman said, tears glistening in her eyes. It was a lesson in life. Miguel turned to see the woman, smiling gently, the words hanging in the air like a promise. The airport had become more than just a transit point. It had become a place where people learned to see each other, not as strangers or celebrities, but as fellow human beings, deserving of respect and kindness. Miguel pulled out the card from his pocket once more and read the words aloud. Kindness doesn't need a name, it just needs a heart. Those words carried with them a truth that no one could forget. As night fell, the terminal lights shimmered softly. Miguel and Owen stood side by side, watching travelers come and go. The journey, that had begun with a simple act of cruelty, had ended in a wave of compassion, forgiveness, and hope. Miguel felt the warmth of that kindness inside him, ready to be passed on, and though Keanu Reeves was no longer visible, his spirit lived in every smile, every helping hand, every quiet act of grace, because in the end, that was the true legacy of the man in the hoodie, to teach us that kindness is the strongest power we have, and that sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who never ask for recognition. Asterisk.